A number of states backtrack on their reopening plans, especially when it comes to indoor events, as we top 50,000 daily COVID cases for the first time ahead of this holiday weekend. But we do have some promising news on the vaccine front. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Thursday, July 2nd. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo, good morning. And in answer to our question about the second half of 2020, our whole systems went down in the middle of our podcast yesterday. We had a delayed start at Cheddar, so I think we're getting our answer, right?
Oh, please don't say that, Jill. But yeah, you know what? Sometimes the machines just rise up and take over, and that's what happened yesterday. But we're back today, so that's good. By the way, I keep thinking that today's what is today? Today's Thursday, and tomorrow's not the fourth. Tomorrow's the third. Okay, Saturday's the fourth. Sorry, it's just a weird week,
Everything
right?
all right over there?
Yeah, I'm having a stroke.
No, but it does get July 4th is one of those holidays that recently has been at least the actual like company holiday that you get. It's been falling on midweek recently. I feel like last year it was on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or whatever. So it's definitely one of these confusing ones. But yeah, tomorrow we just celebrate it in terms of getting a federal holiday, but
Yeah.
the actual 4th is Saturday.
Okay. Thank you for that lesson. Apologies, everybody.
Okay. All right, let's get to some of the news. With the country now topping 50,000 daily coronavirus cases for the first time, more states and cities are moving to reverse or slow their reopenings, particularly when it comes to indoor gatherings. Carlo, maybe they're listening to our podcast.
It's what we've
I
been
don't know.
saying.
So indoor dining will not be allowed when New York City moves into phase 3 next week. California closing dine-in restaurants and bars in most of the state, including hard-hit Los Angeles. And Michigan has ordered most indoor bars to close. Demand for testing, meanwhile, in the South is so high that lines at some sites stretch for miles. I feel like it's deja vu where we're just watching these states kind of in the same situation in terms of testing and kind of a build up to hospitals potentially being overrun that we were in here in New York in March and early April.
Yeah, that's what's so odd about it, right? Because it feels like we've seen this movie already. Also, by the way, I got a test. I was talking about how great that my testing experience was, which was a week ago now. No, more than a week ago. It was last Wednesday. I got the COVID test, and it was super easy. I still haven't gotten the results. I mean, it's kind of pointless to get
Seriously.
a test.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the point of doing it? Like, I don't know. I mean, they're trying, I guess, but that's really not particularly acceptable, I don't think. Anyway,
I
President
do
Trump
know
yesterday
other
said,
people though who have taken the tests and got them back relatively quickly.
my
I
dad
don't
got it
know
in a
what's
day.
yeah, I don't think that's a universal problem like we were
It's
seeing
not, yeah.
earlier here in New York, but something's going on,
It,
Carlo.
it
I
just
think you
seems
need
like
to
by now
follow
they
up.
should. Well, I called them yesterday, and they were like, "Yeah, it could take as much as long as a week." And I was like, "Well, first of all, it's already been a week, and second of all, it sort of defeats the purpose if it takes that long." But it was just like some secretary at the urgent care. Like, what is she? She doesn't control it. Anyway, enough about me. President Trump yesterday, Jill, said that the virus will disappear. He said that yesterday as we hit 2.7 million cases, which is pretty amazing. He said that the vaccine is just going to be here soon enough, and we pretty much just have to wait it out, which is not a particularly pretty good strategy, in my opinion. The good news is that he did actually say for the first time that he's, quote, all for masks. So I guess that's something we should be happy about.
Yeah, I mean
It's
that
better than nothing.
for a lot of Americans who really trust the president and follow what he does and says, that it could be potentially game changing, but we'll see. I mean, I think it would go far for him to wear a mask in public. I think that would
Yeah.
probably send an even stronger message. On the vaccine front, though, we did get some promising news. So Pfizer is doing a study, and they found that one of their trials, they looked at 45 people who got their vaccine, and most of them did develop some type of antibodies. So that Pfizer shares were way up on the news and definitely promising. One of the scientists who's working on it was interviewed. He said, look, we've gotten to this point with other vaccines before and they haven't worked, but this is a crucial next step.
Yeah, look, the way that I think about the vaccine stuff is obviously there's a chance that we won't get one and nothing is ever certain and maybe it takes longer than we hope. But the thing that makes me feel good is like when you just think about in terms of how many of the, most brilliant scientific minds in the world, not even just the country, in the world, are working on this one thing right now. I just believe that, human innovation will win the day, whether it's Pfizer, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, maybe some combination, and also the progress on the treatment front. We just got to get there. But also, while we're talking COVID, Jill, a couple other things of note. Texas, of course, which they're having they're having a major outbreak there. They're putting on a concert this weekend, a concert by Vanilla Ice. Remember him? Which I only mention that because I was just thinking
what
about
is
this
the
when I was
bigger
reading
news
it.
here, that Vanilla Ice is doing a concert,
It's still,
or that
yeah, exactly.
there is a concert somewhere?
But imagine getting the coronavirus and because you went to a Vanilla Ice concert. Like, some things are just not worth it, guys. Look, but the other good news is that the deaths are continuing to fall. I said yesterday I was going to look into this, and I did. And the fact of the matter is, the graph shows the deaths are declining. Again, we don't know for sure if that's because they're lagging. We don't know if that's gonna last, but the next couple of weeks will be crucial. Hospitalizations, meanwhile, are at late May levels, so that's not so good. And Arizona, another place we got to keep watching. They're hitting numbers right now that are similar to what we saw in New York City back in mid-April. This is according to Paul Krugman of the New York Times. He said that Arizona has about 7 million people in the state. They're now reporting as many new cases per day as the European Union, which has 446 million people.
I don't even know what to say. In Arizona, they are getting dangerously close to running out of hospital beds. So I am nervous about the death rate, because one of the reasons that the death rate was so high early on is just because hospitals were so overwhelmed. So as long as there's beds, and now we do have more treatments, but it's just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, I have family in Arizona that I worry about. It's and there's a lot of elderly people in that state, but it is what it is, I guess.
I worry about all of us. The reason that the governor is closing in New York City, that those restaurants are not allowed to open, isn't because of what's happening here. It's because of what's happening everywhere else. And the idea that that an outbreak in one state can't affect us in another state, I think is just false. So just because it's happening in Florida or wherever else right now, I'm equally concerned that we're going to see that go up here. And one reason I'm extra concerned about that is that flights are full these days. More and more people are traveling. This, of course, would normally be one of the busiest travel times of the year for the airline industry. Instead, the major U.S. carriers do continue to try and figure out how to keep themselves afloat amid dried up demand. But, United tripling flights in August. They say customers are slowly returning to the skies. American says that it's going to start flying at full capacity again, which means, as you know, they're not going to do the social distancing on the planes.
The middle seats, they're reopening middle seats for booking, which by the way got Dr. Fauci himself to come out and say he doesn't agree with that, as well as the CDC director. The middle seat thing is so predictable. By the way, it's like they get the good PR for making it seem like they're all for social distancing on planes, and then they just scrap it entirely in the name of getting butts in seats. And I shouldn't even fault the company, because they got to do what they got to do, right? American Airlines in particular is in extremely bad shape. But it's just you could totally see this coming. I never believed that the middle seat thing was going to last. The other one, Alaska Airlines, they're issuing yellow cards like in soccer, to passengers who refuse to wear masks. It's like, just make it mandatory. Why?
But what happens if you get a yellow card? Are you not allowed to fly?
It's like a warning. No, it's like a warning, and I guess if you get warned again, maybe you get kicked off. I don't even really know. It wasn't clear. But just make masks mandatory. Like, why are we reinventing the wheel here, people?
Um, no, absolutely. Okay,
If you're
onto
getting on
some
an
other
airplane
news.
right now, wear a mask for crying out loud.
By the way, I
Sorry,
think we should just wear masks on airplanes in general. To tell you, like now
that's
that
probably not a
we're
bad idea.
culturally used to them, what would be the harm even after this pandemic?
It's true.
Okay, moving on. The CHOP is no more. That CHOP zone in Seattle. Seattle police moved in and cleared the autonomous zone known as CHOP or Chaz after the city's mayor issued an executive order that followed a series of shootings in that area, and that included a shooting that left a 14-year-old boy dead and a 16-year-old in critical condition. That was just a few days ago.
Yeah, and also there's one of these things growing in while it's being dismantled in Seattle, is one growing in New York. Protesters have been sort of setting up camp down by City Hall in Lower Manhattan all week, and they've been clashing with police for days. It hasn't gotten nearly as violent as Seattle, but and it's been mostly peaceful, and it looks sort of like a festival almost. They're calling this the City Hall Autonomous Zone, and it started because they're protesting the NYPD budget, which is being, sort of like winding its way through the legislature.
Bucking a trend, meanwhile, of shows that are pulling episodes from their streaming service because of racially insensitive content, AMC's Mad Men is going to keep up an episode that prominently features a character in blackface. Lionsgate is going to be adding a disclaimer to the start of the episode when the series begins streaming on Amazon's IMDb TV later this month. So basically they're going to explain that the scene shows how commonplace racism was in the time period depicted. Other shows, including Scrubs, 30 Rock, and Community, have altogether removed episodes that include blackface.
So this, Jill, first of all, I love Mad Men. I know you do too. And so this is sort of an interesting way into this story. But, I have this sort of like theory here, like because we don't really deal with physical media anymore, everything we see is starting to become the version that corporations want us to see, right? Does that make sense? Like, and I think that is something that is not nearly discussed enough in sort of popular culture. Like back in the days of DVDs and VHS tapes and CDs and MP3s even. You had something that existed, and it was sort of like a relic of its time, right? I've said this about streaming music for a long time. Like, what happens when your favorite artist gets canceled for some reason, and a Twitter mob forces, Spotify to remove their catalog? Like, I'm not saying that's the same thing as dealing with racially sensitive issues, but it is on a spectrum. Right? Like we are sort of moving in that direction. And I think that I, for one, find that to be worrisome.
No, Carlo, I think that that's a really good point. I'm trying to think of artists where that could potentially happen. Potentially R. Kelly, right? Did they remove his music?
I don't remember what happened with that. I think there was like a push to do it with Spotify. But I actually don't remember if you could, whatever happened with that. But yeah, that's a great
I
point,
mean,
right?
Michael Jackson. I mean, there are a lot of artists that are extremely controversial, even after their death. But back to this Mad Men issue. Mad Men, one of my favorite shows of all time. I've watched it numerous times all the way through.
That's
I
incredible.
think I agree with their decision. I mean, part of what I like about the show is that it is this historical fiction. It rings very true, right? It seems
Yeah.
pretty accurate. And it is offensive on numerous fronts, right? It's not just
Yeah.
racist. It's like
Right.
it's incredibly misogynistic. The way that women are treated in the workforce is a real
Right.
wake up call, I think, for a lot of women right now. I mean, for me, it was. I was like, I can, and you always knew it, but seeing characters that you identify with going through things and having to be subject to certain comments and be denied promotion and things like that, you really relate to it more. There's something to be said for it. A lot of the characters are anti-Semitic, and that struck me as ringing very
Sure.
true in terms of everything that I've studied on Jewish history and my own history. And yes, the characters are racist. I remember that episode where there was blackface. It takes place over several years. It shows real events. There's Marilyn Monroe's death, JFK when he was killed. There's the race riots, and then the characters that you really identify with or learn to either like or hate or whatever. You see them responding to the events, and suddenly it makes it feel more real. You get a more I guess, nuanced understanding of these events and how it impacted actual people. I mean, so it's a snapshot in time, and I think there's a real value to that.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head with that phrase, a snapshot in time. I have a very unpopular opinion among sort of like the woke crowd, and even some of my friends and family members with this. But I do not think that art, basically in any form, and this is what we're talking about, right? This is art. I mean, Mad Men is art. 30 Rock is art. Gone with the Wind is art. I don't think that it should be changed. Like, it is a reflection of a point in time, and a reflection on the person who made it at that point in time. With sitcoms and shows like 30 Rock, like, it's hard to sort of get worked up about it. And if you have to add a disclaimer because people are like too dumb to understand that what they're seeing is what you said, like it's part of a story in history and it isn't real, like, okay, I'm not going to get worked up about that either, I guess. But it's just a slippery slope, and I think that it's deserving. This whole thing about sort of like going back and changing, popular culture, I just think is worthy of a debate that we're not having.
No, Carlo, I agree. I do think that all of this is worth real discussion and debate for sure. But we do want to mention, on a lighter note, we're going to be off tomorrow for the holiday. So I do want to get everyone up to speed a little bit on some of the celebrations. What's definitely going to be one of the stranger 4th of Julys in our lives. About 80% of the local fireworks displays, parades, and events that are normally planned for around the country have been shelved or moved online. DC canceled its parade, but will keep its annual fireworks show and flyovers on the mall. Macy's, which just, by the way, reported a $4 billion quarterly loss, is going to continue its surprise mini fireworks shows tonight and tomorrow, and that's going to culminate with a finale on Saturday night. President Trump will be traveling to Mount Rushmore tomorrow to watch a fireworks show. It's being put on for the first time since the Obama administration banned it in 2010 because of environmental concerns.
Yeah, those concerns are about wildfires. And I shouldn't laugh about this, but I just think it would be sort of like the perfect metaphor for this year's Independence Day if like the big fireworks spectacular at Mount Rushmore just started like some big brush fire. Yeah, I think, reflecting on Independence Day for a moment, Jill, like back in February on this podcast, I remember we were talking about how coronavirus, we could see what, maybe it was probably early March, not February, but you could see that it was going to become this stress test, right? This stress test for the United States. And I remember saying, like, I thought that we would pass it, and I hoped that we would pass it. And on this 4th of July, I think that it's pretty clear that we have failed it, to be perfectly honest. And, we live in a great country, Jill. The United States is an amazing place. And we're very lucky to have been born here, especially in this point in time, right? But I think that this year has exposed a lot of the underlying problems in this country, from just the inherent inequality to our politics to our just absolutely broken healthcare system. But I'm also struck by something that's been in a lot of the polling lately. This poll by Pew Research this week showed that just 17% of people say that they're proud to be an American on the 4th of July, which is really astounding. But more than 50% of people say that they're hopeful just about the future and optimistic. So I just think that we should take a moment this weekend, and I'm going to try and do it myself, to just try and remember some of that and be optimistic about what's before us. Like they say, Jill, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, right? And we've got crises in spades right now, and I just hope that we don't waste them.
Really well said, Carlo. And I was going to add something kind of negative because I'm not feeling that optimistic, but I'm not. I'm going to leave it there because I think that you're right. Let's think about what's good in this country right now, this weekend. But let's also, one thing that's very good is our Love Hate 8. We're going to do 4th of July Love Hate 8 edition a day early. Yes. Carlo, take it away.
Okay, Love Hate 8. One thing we love, professional fireworks, just like we were saying. And thank you to Macy's for giving us something to look forward to, even though, like you just mentioned, they lost $4 billion in the last quarter. I'm not sure there's going to be a Macy's much longer, to be honest with you. So it'll be nice to see the big show on Saturday night, or at least the finale. Although I have to say, a lot of people in New York apparently have been complaining because they've been doing these surprise fireworks shows for the last couple nights, and people are just like, this is the last thing we need, is just to like drifting off to sleep, and there's just these like huge professional fireworks outside our window. But I think it'll be a nice thing to see.
Macy's, by the way, they did say that when they reopened their stores in April and May, they did better than expected. So,
Okay,
at
hopefully,
least some good
they're an
news on the
amazing
business front.
American institution. So yeah, hopefully
I agree
they
with
make.
you. I'm totally pulling for them. All right, one thing that we hate, all other kinds of fireworks. We have not slept in a month. And partly is because our dog has not slept in a month. My dog has been going nuts every single night. It gets the house up. So
Well, I
guys,
can.
whoever's doing it,
I
please
know.
stop.
I can just picture Trestle because you have the yappiest dog on like a good day. So I could
Yeah.
just imagine that he just goes bananas when there's like any sort of external noise. But I
And
guess
the
that makes
best
him a
is
good
that
guard dog.
I'm in I'll be in I'm fast asleep usually when they go off. So it'll be like 10 p.m., which is
Yeah.
normal. That's usually up. Most people are up. So he barks and to me it feels like it's 3 in the morning, and then I'll look at the clock and I'm like, how is it like 9:45 right now? So yeah.
Oh, little Trestle. Okay, and one thing that we ate, a firecracker popsicle, but you remember the old
Mm.
school kinds that you got from the ice cream truck? I'm actually making them with booze this year because it's 2020. Why not? But I'm linking to a recipe for these boozy firecracker pops in the newsletter today. So if anyone wants to join me, hopefully they're good. How could they not be? It's
So
like
that's
Smirnoff
what's
vodka.
going on at the Versado family event
I
right
think
now. I thought
I
this was kid friendly.
well, not, the kids aren't here yet, so I think we're gonna get after it tonight, maybe.
Okay, well, have a great time, and wishing everyone a nice 3-day weekend. Hope everyone can take some time to relax, enjoy, and as Carlo mentioned, think about what's good and be a little bit hopeful about this country and just about our lives as we look forward to the rest of the year.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, everybody enjoy and be safe.
all right, that's what you need to know for Thursday, July 2nd.
Thanks, everyone.